Is from Maria Charlton. Is Maria there? No? Maria's not there. Maria's question was directed to Nuatali. Nuatali, the question is, what are you going to do to address the impact of supercars on local businesses, including closures and business financial losses, and on the 3,000 residents subject to noise levels of 105 to 109 decibels that 70 doctors have attested will be harmful to hearing and health? 2 minutes.
Certainly happy to address Maria's question. Look, I'm very supportive of having supercars in Newcastle. I've said this on many occasions and many different forums recently. I actually believe big events attracting over $50 million worth of economic development and investment in this city, showcasing Newcastle to 220 million viewers, both nationally and internationally, is a great thing for this city. I know that everyone in this city is not a fan of motorsports, but I do know that events of this scale and nature are good for the growth of this city. Now, I definitely had my difficulties with Destination New South Wales, particularly, and supercars in the early days of the consultation, and I let them know that I wasn't happy with that. However, that is not a reason to actually stop having this event. What we have done at Council is look at how we can mitigate the impacts of supercars and make sure we have great improvements in public amenity. So we're spending over $9 million, not for supercars, but to upgrade the infrastructure in Newcastle East. Watt Street, our older street, had drainage that was over 100 years old and was constantly failing. We are fixing that draining, we are fixing the footpaths, we're laying smart city cables throughout the East End and around the foreshore. The tree canopy in Foreshore Park was about 500 square metres. We're going to increase that to 10,000 square metres with new
Nuatali, with respect, I think the question was more about local businesses, including closures and business financial losses, and the noise levels.
Absolutely, but it's a holistic event, and what I'm saying to you is there's a significant investment into city infrastructure that is going to be of great benefit to small business and also large business in our CBD. The smart city cabling that we're laying will actually provide great opportunities, further opportunities for business in that area. Now, in terms of disruption, we acknowledge that there is disruption, but we have compressed the timeframes of that delivery, particularly in Watt Street, to try and make sure that we don't leave anyone behind. Now, every time a city grows, there are growing pains, and we're not going to please everyone all the time. But I would say to you, stick with us. After we have this event, if it is as disastrous as about 15 people in Newcastle predict it's going to be, then we will absolutely look at what we can do to make it better for Newcastle.
Well, thanks very much. That leads us on to the next question, which was sent in by Andrew from Newcastle East. And that question is directed to both Kath and to Rees, and it's again a 2-minute opportunity. And that's, could you please outline your policy for determining whether supercars will be extended beyond its initial 5-year contract? Will it involve an independent and transparent cost-benefit assessment? Will it involve meaningful input and consultation from impacted businesses and residents? And at what time will that decision made? There's quite a few handfuls there, but basically it's asking you, how are you going to determine whether this event will continue after its initial 5-year contract?
Thanks. The supercars is not... Good trick.
I fixed it for her. I think Christopher Pine's a fixer too, isn't he? So beware. The supercars is a vexed issue, and it's not a black and white answer. And I said in Hamilton recently that the event clearly is going to be going ahead this year, despite a lot of opposition, particularly from those who are most impacted. And I feel very strongly about for those people, and I'm very concerned that the community consultation wasn't undertaken in a way which was meaningful earlier. What I said at Hamilton and what I'll say tonight is that we need to do a review of supercars. I'm very supportive of events in the city, and I agree with Councillor Nelms about the fact that they bring a lot of money to the city.
However, the route is fraught and there's been a lot of concern in the community. So we need a proper review, we need an independent review to see whether or not, one, the event is successful, two, what has happened to the people in Newcastle East, what has happened to the businesses, and if we're elected, if there is compensation to be paid or something to be done to reduce the impact of the community going forward, then we would be very, very keen to do that. Because I work in community consultation and I can tell you that a lot of the time it's the small number of people who have to bear the brunt for what's called the greater good. Now we need to know, is the supercars going to be greater good? And if so, what do we do for the people who have to suffer? If they're not the greater good, then what do we do going forward? We really need a review, and I'm committed to doing that to make sure that it's meaningful and it's independent.
Thank you very much. Therese.
Thanks. I was one of the two councillors on Newcastle City Council that voted against the Newcastle bid to have supercars come to Newcastle and to be held, for the event to be held somewhere in Newcastle East. We did not know where, and I believe councillors had very little information before them to make any sort of decision, let alone put a bid about which none of you are allowed to know, for the privilege of having supercars take over the east end of our city. I will, if I am Lord Mayor, insist that the recommendations of the Auditor General that were after an investigation that was conducted in 2010 be actually implemented. Peter Actonstra did an investigation into the supercars event the events that were being held at the time at Olympic Park, found that the claims of money made by both the government and supercars were significantly overstated, and that the costs to local businesses were significantly understated. And so I will insist that the state government conduct a real business case into the supercars. But a business case is at the beginning and the end. What we have here is a commandeering of people's living spaces, and that's not something that I am willing to give any credence to as a councillor. So I will do everything in my power to ensure, number one, that there is as much openness and transparency as I can possibly get legally, and I will do everything in my power to make sure that the people who are affected are heard loud and clear, and particularly the small businesses.
I'm worried we're going to go to number 8 here, Therese.
Okay.
Thank you very much.